Welcome to the Evo India podcast. I'm Sirish Chandran, editor of Evo India, and today we are talking motorsport, specifically the first Formula E race that happened in India. In the studio, I have with me Adil Jal Darukhanawala. Everything I learned about motorsport, I learned from Adil, and he is a walking, talking encyclopedia of motorsport. So, nobody better to give us some perspective on the race as well as what it's like for finally, after 10 years, an FIA series coming back to India. It is 10 years since Formula One was in India. Adil, welcome to the Evo India podcast. What was the race like for you?
Oh, I'm glad to be here and speaking motorsport. To be honest with you, it was a very refreshing return to top flight racing in India at a venue which never was envisaged by anyone in the motorsport fraternity. That's a big thing. Secondly, I must say one thing. It could not have happened at a better venue with better people than in Hyderabad.
So, in this podcast, we're going to be talking about watching the Formula E race in person. We're going to talk about whether this is the future. Will Formula E replace Formula One in, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 20 years? The Hyderabad street circuit itself, the race itself, that was very exciting. Alden and I watched it together from the media room. It was a very exciting race. We will talk about that. We talk about the promoters, all their efforts into making this happen, because without the promoter, this would definitely not have happened. Obviously, we will talk about what we did not like. This was the first race. There are some areas of improvement. We will touch upon that. We'll talk about Mahindra Racing. This is the home race for Mahindra, and they went all guns blazing. They called it their homecoming. After 8 years of participating in Formula E, finally they have a race on home ground. And also, we will talk about the feeder series to Formula E that is planned by the former boss of Mahindra Racing. So, if you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to hit that like button, share this podcast with like-minded enthusiasts, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on any of the podcast channels. Remember to share this and subscribe to the Evo India podcast as well as the Evo India channel. So, Adil, let's dive right into it. The Formula E race, watching it in person. Now, we've obviously seen this on television. I don't know if you follow it on television, but I don't follow it religiously on television. What was the difference between watching it on television and watching it live?
Two things. Very importantly, you can get to watch it live, especially for people like us. When it's the qualifying and the practice sessions, then you go down to the track to see that. But if you want to plot the entire race and see what all happens, I think like most seasoned journalists the world over do, they are there at their desks in the media room and they watch it on television. So for a enthusiast who wants to savor the excitement, the sights, not so much the sound because this is jet age sort of stuff. But yes, even though when you see that thing and you see the pace at which the cars pass you, that's a different thrill for an enthusiast for the first time. But more often than not, the way motorsport has evolved, I think it is still now very much a television sport. So in that sort of sense, you want to get the best out of it, stay glued to your television screens.
So maybe I should rephrase that. What I meant was watching the entire weekend. Of course, it's only a Friday, Saturday event. It's not on Sunday, and they have a very compressed format. So just 2 practice sessions, qualifying, and then you go straight into the race. So it's not like a long weekend. There are no support races. But I want to talk about the entire atmosphere. In the pit lane, we walked through the grandstands, meeting fans over there. So what was the entire atmosphere like at a proper FIA-approved series that has come to India after so many years?
Let's keep this FIA-approved series at abeyance for a while. Let's talk about taking motor racing to a city, a tech-heavy city like Hyderabad. And I think that was right. So the techies there really gave it their all. The crowds which came in really shamed every other venue of motorsport in this country. I have no doubt about it. Sorry about this, Madras, Coimbatore, Delhi, everyone. But the Hyderabadis came out in numbers which truly shamed everyone else, the established thing. No offense meant, but I think that when you are going to a series which is a stepping stone now to the inevitable, but I don't think the inevitable is on us still for another 15-20 years, so I rest content with that. And since we are going to discuss that later on, The important thing is the atmosphere there was created for an event like this, where people came in, they had grandstands which were sold out.
20,000
Yes,
tickets
they were
apparently,
sold
and
out.
everything was sold out.
Yes, so that's what I meant by shaming everyone else across over there in our fraternity. But more than that, these guys were clued into what makes a electric car tick over there on the racetrack. I think they came in with a little bit of that in their subconscious. I think that's a very, very positive thing. Secondly, given the fact that it's mighty difficult in any Indian city to get through to the bureaucrats to close roads, the way Hyderabad did that was exemplary. Yes, there were glitches there. It was the first time ever for such a thing. Maybe Hyderabad was happy doing this because they had 2 IRL rounds earlier, but they learned from it. So, but the fact of the matter is, the grace with which Hyderabad embraced Formula E is also a slap on the face of every other state in the country who and the politicians who only bicker amongst themselves but don't get our nation's capabilities and our potential to the fore. Hyderabad did that.
So we'll talk about the Telangana government's involvement when we talk about the promoter of the race. Now, we spent time in the pit lane. We also saw the racing action up close in practice as well as in qualifying. In qualifying, I was at the circuit. The cars, they do feel fast. It's not like the cars are
They
slow.
are quick. They are quick. No
And
doubt
the
about it.
reason why Formula E is held at a street race is because it is tight. And the reason why they don't go to proper full-fledged circuits is because the cars will last because of regeneration. And the regen is very important on a big circuit where
It's
you
an
don't have much.
efficiency formula, and that's really the reason why they run it in urban centers.
Exactly. And now because they are in urban centers, everything is close. The walls are all very close. So the sense of perspective is really magnified. And that's why, because you're so close, you feel that the cars are properly fast. The cars don't sound great because obviously electric cars,
They
so you
don't
have
sound
that
at all.
whine. So you have that whine, and if you're standing at a tight corner like a hairpin that I was standing at, you hear a lot of tires squealing. And we're not used to hearing tires squeal in a race because it's always the engine that's overpowering every other sound. Did you like that? What did you make
No,
of
that's the only one attribute I hold against Formula E, that there's no sense of drama when the cars are really going in anger one against the other. So maybe yes, we'll take some time to wring my head around that.
it? Is it hard to get excited by the lack of noise?
Yes, to a certain extent for sure. But when you see the way the action unfolded here in Hyderabad, I feel, having watched Formula E all these last 8 years, this is the 9th year, I think this was the most exciting race in the history of Formula E. So maybe when you have got this sort of close racing, inevitability of who's going to make the podiums and whatnot, I think this is terrific.
So is this the future? Is electric racing the future? We've seen electric cars not only in Formula E but in the Nitro Cross. We are seeing it in the Extreme Series.
Yeah.
So is this the future?
Well, it can happily reside alongside the pinnacle of the sport. Whether what it needs, actually speaking, right now is we need big time, big name, present day heroes, or heroes who have won in Formula One and maybe IndyCar or the Sports Car World Championship or the Formula Nippon or whatever. You need those big names. I'm not saying, not disparaging any of the drivers who are here. We have got a great mix of ex-Formula One drivers, great Lama champions, lot of hot chargers who have come up through Formula 2 and whatnot. It's great. But for the series to develop and evolve, maybe we need to have big name drivers in this. I think that it's a very difficult ask over here, because Formula 1, from the times of Bernie Ecclestone, Bernie Bhaiya had said, you want to race in Formula 1, you only race in Formula 1. You look at that thing about Nico Hülkenberg. He was prevented from doing Lama and Formula 1, and he had won Lama the previous year. I think these sort of restrictions which are wrought into agreements don't portray motorsport, top flight motorsport in good light, but this is the aspect which we are seeing more and more.
It's probably a little harsh to say that Formula E is like a retirement championship
No,
for
it's
those
not. It's
who've-
not. No
because
way.
you see a lot of Formula One exiles. Even if you look at the young guns who are there now, Jehan Daruwala, he was
Look
our
at Dan
hope.
Tickton.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Yeah,
Jehan.
yeah.
Now he was our hope for the next Indian in Formula One. He tried Formula 2, he didn't win the championship, and now he's finally signed up for Mahindra Racing after having realized that Formula 1 is perhaps now a very distant dream. So you look at what are the other possibilities. So is Formula E still perceived to be 1, 2, 3 rungs below Formula 1?
Shirish, there are 2-3 dimensions to this question. Jehan Daruwala got the wrong end of the stick with a team he thought would do wonders because it was a championship winning team when he joined them, and the team just lost it last year. So, but to the world outside, it looks as if Jehan Daruwala lost it, which is not the real story at all. Yeah, Jehan has been driving. He is known in Formula 2 as the best overtaker, and you have seen that thing in so many race meet. And he's also known as the best defensive driver going. So it's just unfortunate that that's how he got into Prema, which was a championship winning team, just dropped the ball. We also got to understand one thing. I will not shirk away from saying this. There's a lot of racism in the sport, and a guy from our part of the world, if he comes in and he doesn't come in with bags of money, he's no good. That's the perception which the Euros. I think that this we have seen this happen earlier as well with Naren Karthikeyan. It's happened before, and it's going to happen again. So unless and until we don't have a strong motorsport holding over here, I must say one thing here in this regard though. The FIA president Mohammed bin Sulaim was here. I think his coming here was a very, very big thing. Truly a big thing, because he understands what our region needs. Our region needs to develop a big bank of drivers, riders, etc., race promoters, more races, more action to happen with our sort of spending capabilities and whatnot. And I think he's trying to lay stress onto it. Someone may dismiss my saying this as saying because Mohammed bin Sulaim has got the wrong end of the stick from the Formula 1 team. So I think that's again deflection at its best. He is the president of the FIA for the whole world, and that includes Formula 1. So the Formula 1 teams have got their own. They think that they are a class above everyone else, and I think in a lot of ways they are right, but they should never make the rules. The FIA should make the rules.
So that's a good segue to our next chapter, and that is the Hyderabad street circuit itself. Now on Saturday morning, I had a hot lap in the Mahindra XUV 400 driven by our mutual friend Mazda. So obviously they weren't gunning it because they didn't want to prank any of the cars or create any more delays. The circuit, it seemed fast flowing, also very tight. These are street circuits. There's no acres of runoff. It's like you have your walls all over, but it was actually wide.
Yes.
Monaco would be
tighter. Yes.
So this was actually wide. There was just that one chicane that everybody was cutting, getting penalties for, and they said that should have been redesigned because invariably you would go wide and you would cut it.
It was a very fine line there. There's a very fine, thin line there.
And we saw that in qualifying also.
Saw that in the race as well.
And in the race. So that was maybe one area of concern. The second area of concern was the dust, because this is a normal road. Cars are not supposed to belt down them at 250, 260 kilometers per hour. So in the first practice, there was a huge dust storm kicked up by the cars. But eventually it did clean up. And by the Saturday of the race, it looked clean. There was no dust flying around. What did you make of
But
the
Shirish,
circuit?
one thing is there. Any street circuit, even Diriyah was dusty. Lot of races are dusty. Even in the Formula 1 calendar, when you start off with first practice, second practice, things are dusty. We should not make that as a stick to hit the race organizers with. So, yes, India is a dusty place. You ask any photographer this, don't ask us racers. And they say the dust in the atmosphere, which really hangs around, doesn't give them the same sharpness of photography which many other locales would have. So when you think about that, and on the track, I think yes, I'm not saying that the organizers couldn't have done this. They should have had better equipment to what you call get the dust on which residue dust was there. I think maybe we should what you call get Adil Poonawala, who does such a wonderful job helping the Pune Municipal Corporation with all those machines, Hoover-matics and whatnot. I think the organizers would do well. And in case you guys don't know who's Adil Poonawala, he's the man who gave the world Covishield. So maybe it's important. So this example aside, I think the organizers did it very well. As far as the runoff areas, there were 2 runoff areas which they had done, and they were very well conceived. Vanderlind lost it in first qualifying and first practice, and he went straight off, and he just about nudged the tire barrier there, and it did its job, and he reversed and came back. So that was even Lucas Di Grassi in qualifying went straight off at the same, but he didn't hit anything. He again turned. So those 1 or 2 runoff areas which they had done were very well conceived, very well designed. Everything was there. The first corner chicane was really, but every time we say that, yes, this guy just cut it by a whisker, but there's the same yardstick, that man also managed to do it well on another lap. So maybe, yes.
And it was the same for everybody.
It was the same for everybody. So you can't say that. Actually speaking, it tried to what you call make that guy who was consistent there and who had set up the car there. I think we lost a great chance to see Pascal Wehrlein at its best, because the Porsches were quick, and because of a software glitch where
in FP1 he had that big crash.
So he found that the brakes had gone, and so the throttle had stuck. So he had no alternative but to induce a spin and scrub off speed before he hit the barrier, and that's what saved him from grievous injury.
Yeah, and the circuit, it actually held up. There was a delay, but there wasn't much delay. The delay was just to get his car off the circuit. The barriers did not move. Nothing happened.
Shirish, I said one thing to you that day also. Is the best piece of road tarmac a city has ever got in this country.
The best piece of road tarmac. Maybe if they had run a support race, maybe something like the IRL before this, they could have cleaned up the circuit. But then, of course, you can't have noisy cars.
No, you can't have internal combustion engine cars in a series, which is so very different.
So that's where we'll talk about the feeder series, but we'll talk about that later on. So the Hyderabad street circuit, all the drivers gave it the thumbs up. They all liked the layout of the track. Obviously, everybody had the data, so they drove it on the simulator before coming down to Hyderabad to drive it there. But not one driver that we spoke to had anything negative to say.
No. They enjoyed it.
They only said that maybe they could have sorted out that first chicane, but apart from that, they all enjoyed it. And it delivered an incredible race.
Superb. It was... I'm telling you, my heart is always with Formula 1. It's very difficult to dislodge it from there. But when you see, why do I enjoy IndyCar racing? I enjoy IndyCar racing because of the closeness of action and the inevitability of so many moves which are made from the leader goes to 7th and then he bounces back to 2nd. That sort of thing doesn't happen in Formula 1. Or if it happens in a rain-induced race. Here also the same sort of thing was there. And in Formula E, how you can maximize your energy, what time you plan your strategy to take the power boost. Jaguar did an awful job.
Let's talk about Jaguar. Now, in qualifying, they did really well. Their powertrain was superb. In fact, the Envision, it uses a Jaguar powertrain.
Correct.
And we were obviously rooting for Mahindra because they are the pure Indian team, but Jaguar is also the second Indian team there.
Very much so.
TCS,
Tata.
So
Tata owned Jaguar with TCS sponsorship here.
So having Jaguar on pole was great for us Indian fans.
Absolutely.
We had somebody to cheer for, and then it all went south.
I think, I don't know, we may debate the strategy call they gave to Mitch Evans. He sacrificed track position to get the power boost. In that, because the other 2 guys following him were so close, to have sacrificed track position was a no-no. Whosoever did the strategy call from the team management, I think he should be be wrapped on the knuckles for that. Because I dropped him down to 3rd and he got mired in the melee there. And those guys who leapfrogged him, They never took this power boost till the time.
There was some gap to the cars behind.
Yeah, there was some gap. So
And
what I'm saying is, you never sacrifice track position in that. Not when everyone is on par in performance and nose to tail with each other. I think maybe
So
someone.
do you
has
want to take a
think.
break there and talk about the whole attack mode? That
Yes.
for me, that was sort of like how Formula One had
DRS.
DRS, where you create artificial excitement. So here, for the attack mode, you have to go wide to go through that certain area. So you have to trigger those points on the track, and only then you get the
So
attack mode.
yeah, what it is, the Formula E equivalent of DRS is, you can have a power boost which gives you about 50 bhp more,
50 kilowatts.
50 kilowatts more, and it can happen for a total of 4 minutes. Those 4 minutes you can take it into either twice. You have to do the power boost. You either do it with 1 minute the first time and 3 minutes the other, or you can do 2 minutes and 2 minutes, or you can do 3 minutes and 1 minute. But there's a sequence at the hairpin which is marked out, and there are 3 activation points in that radius over there. All the 3 activation points have to be triggered. Means the sensors, the driver has to trigger a attack mode thing before he enters that thing, that area. So yes, it really spices up the show in such a manner. But when you have got everyone who's so evenly matched, actually the top 7-8 were very evenly matched. It was only an incident which happened, and there were incidents where people went off at that same hairpin. Someone dived inside the corner, couldn't make it, etc. And then it negated the guys following behind.
Adil, I thought the attack zone should have been marked out in a way where the cars following behind could actually use the 50 kilowatt boost to leapfrog the cars in front. Here, it was more like a drop position zone, because if you
Yes.
took that attack zone,
Yes,
you
it
would
looked
drop
like that.
position
Yes.
because you had to go wide. You were on the dusty side of the track, and the cars behind you would leapfrog you. So I
But
thought
Shirish, still, yes, you're right. But the fact of the matter is the cars were so finely matched and the nose to tail. So whosoever did it was going to be in a mess.
exactly, and everybody had to do it.
Yeah, and
So-
actually speaking, if you care to think about it, the guys who were second or guy was third at that time, I think it was Bioimi or someone, he should have taken the attack mode first. So because there was no one following him behind, there was a gap, and he would have been better off and used it to gain. But the thing is that the question was answered for all of them by Mitch Evans being told to take the power booster.
So Mitch Evans took the power boost. He dropped down to third, and then
then he dropped down to fourth
then
as
he
well.
dropped down to fourth, and then he got T-boned by his own teammate. It's obviously a racing incident. Sam
It
Bird
is.
obviously did not want to go.
No,
into his
no
teammate.
way. But it's just
was
that he came
diving
in
down
too hot. He came in
so he
too
was
hot.
diving down the inside of the car in front of him. He misjudged the corner and he leapfrogged 2 places.
No,
and
you can see that he had locked his front wheels and it just slid. There was no control. And I must tell you here, this is one other aspect where I don't think many people know it. These Formula E cars don't have rear brakes. Very, very important thing. Everything is done with the front brake. So the efficiency formula which I mentioned about, the car, the tub basically, and the aerodynamics and the bodywork is all done by Dallara. Anything behind the driver's cockpit is the team's own thing. So the battery pack, the motor, and the rear suspension is every team. But whatever you have got from the driver ahead onwards, including the front axle, which now has got regen battery pack, which doesn't deliver power to the motor. There's no motor, but it develops 40% of the energy during a race is done from the front wheels.
so
and
basically the front axle is for recovery.
Yeah, front axle is for recovery. And then if you really lock it solid, there's nothing going to help you. So that's what happened to Sam Bird.
Yeah. So like Adil said, behind the driver, everything the team does on their own. And today, the main point of Formula E is to maximize efficiency. So we were in a roundtable with the Mahindra drivers, and Lucas Di Grassi said that these cars are 96% efficient. So if you're just using recovery, every time you brake, you recover 96% of the energy that you use to accelerate. So that is the whole race to road initiative of Formula E. Now, if this kind of recuperation energy can translate into road cars, obviously it won't be 96%, but if it can go up to say 70%, then on your road cars, you will need to have smaller batteries because you will recover so much energy, and thus your electric cars can last longer.
But you can't drive that hard like these
Yeah.
guys drive to
But there is some road car relevance to
yes,
Formula E
absolutely.
now.
No, there's no two ways
Everything
about
that
it.
the teams are working on in terms of software, even in terms of all the equipment, the motors, the batteries, downsizing it, having better efficiency, that can eventually lead to better electric cars on the road for you and me.
I think yes, for sure. But I still can't get myself to get off my V8s or six-cylinder inlines and whatnot. But having said that, yes, efficiency is good for the environment, good for a lot of reasons, including in urban centers where you want peace and quiet.
Exactly.
There should be something for, if we can only harness the energy from the horn button, we could have done quite a lot for
Recuperation.
our recuperation.
So the race itself.
Hmm.
Now, John Eric Verne, he drove an energy conservation masterclass. It was brilliant. The last lap, he finished with 0% energy.
That's
and
how. That's
Cassidy
the
behind
that's
him
the
had
efficiency.
4%.
That's the efficiency formula
So-
at work.
So talk us through those final 4 laps.
The key thing was it was not just about the counter on the screen showed that which driver had how much quantum remaining of energy, and it was open to every team. So every team would inform its drivers, yes, go for this guy's jugular because he's only so much and all that. The key thing was Cassidy is a good driver, really good young talent. But you had the wily old fox, double world champion, Formula E champion. Not only did he do his energy recovery very well in those last 2-3 laps, but his positioning of his car in the vital overtaking zones was also key, because it was very difficult for Cassidy and at that time his teammate Buemi, and Buemi was shielding Cassidy from the hard charging Felix da Costa. So in that sort of sense, Jean-Eric Verne's skills in positioning his car for the getting into the corner and his exit out of the corner were such key elements. So everyone only focused on the quantum of energy remaining, but he knew that, and that's the reason why he, just the way Lucas Di Grassi did in the opening round of this year's championship, when he was leading and then he got leapfrogged by the 2 Porsches and he was under threat. But he also drove a masterclass. So it was also always the oldies who know what to do in a crunch situation.
Experience counts.
Absolutely.
So here, it's not just your racecraft, but it's also your energy management. You have to keep an eye out on how much of your juice, how much of the juice from the batteries you are using.
I always say one thing, the Formula E drivers have to be physicists, mathematicians.
Yeah, it's not just pedal to the
it's
metal.
not, no, it's not just that. So in that, and like I said, I see many youngsters who come in to Formula E from other forms of motorsport. Sometimes they are out of their depths because they only know how to go fast.
Mhm.
Of course, I'm no disrespect, but then they need to have a super strong, what do you call, learning curve to experience before they really get up to speed. And getting up to speed, I've seen like Felix da Costa. He started, I think, 13th, if I'm not mistaken. And he said that he comes from, primarily comes from American racing. And he said that he has got to get his 1 lap pace right. And that 1 lap pace is so significant during qualifying. So you can then use the rest of the 32 laps for a main race to plot your chart up progress. But you need that 1 lap pace. So the hard chargers have that 1 lap pace, the youngsters. But can they, what you call, then translate that and put it all together to last those 32 laps is really where the race is won or lost.
So that was on the race, and that brings us to the promoters and how they put together the entire race. Now, the Telangana government, full marks to them for having the commitment to bring down the race to Hyderabad, having it on the street circuit. Now, in any city, shutting down a road is not easy. You will cause traffic chaos.
You need political will.
Exactly,
You
they had
need
the
political
commitment.
will.
They really pushed to get that sorted out. So that was a good thing with the
Very
Telangana
good thing.
government.
Very
and
good
also
thing.
Greenko for putting in the bucks behind it, because this is not cheap.
No.
It calls for a significant amount of investment, and if Greenko hadn't put in the investment, this would not have happened.
Yeah, see, the question, first and foremost, let's talk about the political angle. In India, since independence, cars have been termed as examples of conspicuous consumption. It's a really ridiculous thing. The automobile industry is the third largest in the world now, about to be third largest in the world, and you still what you call treat it like your favorite whipping dog with your sort of idiotic modes and thought processes. And I blame every government for this across the board. So I don't have any political affiliations to in this regard and all that. You need to see contributes almost about 11-12% of our GDP, gives millions of people a livelihood, etc.
And the tax.
Yeah, absolute. So whatever is all the Telangana government has embraced electric propulsion across electric energy as an energy source across the board, whether it be automobiles for industry or whatever. And I think that's a very, very positive statement of intent. And to back that up, see, what you need to do is you need to take this to the masses. You cannot see electric mobility happening just by selling some scooters, but you got to see it that electric mobility works. How does it work? Formula E is probably the best advertisement. It's a dynamic advertisement right in front of you, and when it can come across there, and you've seen two big name Indian firms in there, Mahindra and Tata Motors via Jaguar Land Rover. I think it does give a big statement across over there. I think that Mahindra being there, and also because Tech Mahindra is also in this IT city, so is TCS. So the Telangana government thought long and hard, and I think they came up with the right answers. The bureaucrats were attuned to the vision which the government wanted to put through to the people, and everything aligned. I don't think the bureaucrats were told to open their old book of canards and trying to play favorites and whatnot. Everyone aligned. And when you see that, I'm just thinking of trying to draw a parallel. Bangalore is another IT city, Pune is another IT city. It could never happen in these two cities. Let me be brutally frank about Bangalore, because they have got a chip on their shoulder, the people there. The Puneites, they only bicker amongst themselves. Hyderabad, I saw the grace with which the people embraced Formula E. Tremendous in all respects. Even though certain roads leading to the circuit were closed and new forms of access was there, everyone took it in their stride, which was so refreshing.
So let's dive into the next chapter, and that is the stuff that we did not like. So let's start with the media accreditation.
No, this is one thing, yes. This is, I think, completely down to the Formula E guys. Like I said, they think that this is a demeaning thing, so let's leave it to the locals. It's not. You cannot have a world championship event and not have a dedicated media accreditation cell which is away from everyone. There are lots of other areas in a race meet where you have the security guys, the firefighting staff, you've got the track cleaners, you've got other infrastructural support teams and whatnot. You cannot bracket all of them in the same thing. And even for those teams, you had just 2-window access, and there were crowds in the thousands across over there. Let me see, they treat this sort of a thing elsewhere in the world. They'll be taken to the cleaners. Again, like I said, this was one of the only sore spots which I found in this thing. Even the police were so very efficient and eager to please. They were helpful. I've never seen helpful policemen here. If it was there in Maharashtra, I'm sorry to say, they would first whack you and then say what.
I think we should put a disclaimer on this podcast. So what we noticed was that if there was better dissemination of information as to this is the location of this, these are the locations of the
Yes.
gates, this is how you get to the gates, that would have sorted out, I think,
Yes.
maybe 50-60% of the problem.
Yes, yes.
Last evening, on Saturday evening, coming back to Pune, the guy sitting next to me was an Indigo pilot, and he had gone to the races, and then he was taking the flight to Pune to do his next day's duties. So he had come for the races with his family, and he said that he had a problem getting to the gates because the shuttles were not there.
True,
and
true.
So that is just purely down to a little bit better information, sorting out the shuttles.
Absolutely.
And when you can organize this entire thing, doing that is like a little. It's
Yeah,
chicken
so
feed.
you need better coordination amongst the teams over there, both inside the track and outside the track. One leader cannot do everything, so you have to delegate well. Again, it's a learning curve for it to have happened, because no one thought that the entire grandstand tickets would be sold off, but
Yep.
they were sold off.
Yep.
So that was a pleasant surprise and a very welcome one at that. Yes, they will learn. As far as I'm concerned, I'm seen races elsewhere abroad also, where we have got issues across of access and whatnot. It is there. So whenever there's a big ticket event like this, these sort of things do happen. I think for Hyderabad and India to have done this was wonderful. We will learn, and I'm sure I see a go and get it done spirit there. And I think that this also will be sorted out for next year.
So well done to the promoters. And now we must talk about Mahindra. We actually had a packed weekend.
Absolutely.
2 evenings in a row, we had events at Tech Mahindra. So Mahindra, the entire group, they used the strength of the group to really make an impact. So Mahindra Auto, Tech Mahindra, Mahindra Racing, all came together. Tech Mahindra, they had this massive setup for events. So on the first day, they had the homecoming, where they unveiled their Gen 3 car in India for the first time. That's when we actually got to see it up close and personal. They had their entire made team, their Mahindra Advanced Design set up in the UK. All of them were here, led by Pratap Bose. On the second evening, Pratap Bose had this banging fashion show where with Drinzim Dadu, they showcased
and 2 other designers.
the XUV 400 in that special color, and they had Gulpanag, they had God of Gil, they had the other designers who we do not know of. They had some very interesting looking models and all that. Okay, but we are not going to talk about all of that. So they had great events. They really put their best foot forward to project themselves in a solid light. The XUV 400s were circuit cars. I think there were maybe 20-30 of those XUV 400s out there.
It again
running
making a
support
statement,
cars.
it's again
So
making a statement.
Mahindra really did go all guns blazing in their homecoming event.
Yeah, you must understand one thing. Mahindra has been one of the founders of Formula E right since its inception, and it has stayed true to them, to this formula right from the beginning. The vision which Anand Mahindra and at that time Pawan Goenka and maybe other guys in the management group had. Chetan Maini, because he had bought Mahindra had bought Rewa much earlier than that. So in that sort of sense, yes. And Anand Mahindra, knowing the man he is, he had been what you call always putting his might behind doing a race in India. He wanted to do a MotoGP race also, given the fact that his bikes, the only Indian bikes ever to have won World Championship Grand Prix races in Moto3, unfortunately was not to happen. So he definitely wanted to see a Formula E race happen and to show that Mahindra is on an equal plank with the rest of the top teams in the world. I think he got his chance, and he really stayed true to his own ethos of trying to what you call push the electromobility envelope forward. The key question was not about whether they would do well or not. Racing is a thing where one day you could be on top, the other day you could be somewhere else. But the commitment Mahindra is making to electromobility, those 5 prototypes we had seen at Mahindra Advanced Design Europe last year in August, for a global audience, they were brought here to India. and we saw their India debut here. It was timed very well. Plus, after that, the B all which they did it, and they made a really sexy and really worthwhile concept on that for all round, all terrain use. I told Rajesh Jejurikar, don't get the B all 4, get this new concept into production.
So Adil's talking about the Rall-E,
Rall-E,
B05,
yeah.
Rall, R-A-L-L-E,
Yeah.
which is their vision for off-road, go anywhere electric vehicle, the Thar of the electric era,
Yes.
which looks really cool. I particularly like their huge dinner plate sized projector lamps. It evoked the rally cars from
Correct.
the Group A era. That was nice, chunky tires, raised ground
It had
clearance.
a great presence.
And both Rajesh Jejurikar, Pratap Bose, even Velusamy, the head of engineering, the guy behind all of these concepts, they said this is coming into production.
Yes.
They don't do concepts just for the sake of doing concepts. Their concepts all have a production vision and reality. So this will make it to production. Maybe a few details toned down, but this is such a cool thing to happen, right?
You know what? Everyone talks about how difficult it is to engineer a car. But now I'm looking at the fact that the sort of skateboard architecture which is so prevalent and which helps every manufacturer to spawn so many different versions using that same platform. And I think let's not forget one thing. We Indians are very smart at utilizing a concept and then building onto it. We are much better in this thought than many other nations, Japan included, mind you. So
Should we call it juicing a platform?
juicing it up also and jazzing it up also, you know. So in that sort of thing, I think the product planners and the designers and also the management at Mahindra is looking at, I feel that Mahindra is very much sure that electromobility is the way to go. I will not dispute that, but nor will I agree to that in that way. But yes, they are hedging their bets. They are not taking their foot off the gas as far as ICE is concerned, because they have got some stunning engines already in their portfolio and they are very new. So in that sort of case, when you make a car like this and then you make a concept out of another concept, and which is much better and can make production, I think that speaks volumes for the entire team, you know.
Definitely. They also, speaking about putting your foot down, they had the Pininfarina Battista that made its India debut. It did a few
Stunning car.
It had the Italian flag on the nose, the Indian flag on the tail,
On the engine cover and whatnot.
so showing the collaboration between India and Europe. Jehan Daruwala gave laps to Sachin Tendulkar in that. So it was a cool representation of the might of the Mahindra Group.
Absolutely. The thing is that, think about it, Pininfarina, one of the world's, or rather can say the most prominent name among carrozzerias in the world in the design sense, is a Tech Mahindra owned company. But still it is allowed to carve its own furrow in the automobile business. And that car looks smashing. And when you have got that, by inference, you say so many things. And the Mahindra Group let Pininfarina bask in that glory, and they only soaked up the ambience from that. I think it was a very classy way to do things, you know.
So finally, Adil, you talked about how Formula E requires not just racecraft, but a lot of knowledge of the series, how to use the power, how to deploy the power, all of that. And training young drivers to get there is going to take time. And that's where the new feeder series, at least the planned feeder series to Formula E, will hold promise.
Yes.
So Dilbagh Gill, he's partnered with the same promoters of the Hyderabad Grand Prix to set up the ACE Championship. Talk us through that.
Dilbagh spearheaded Mahindra Racing from inception till about the beginning of this season. And he thought that, yes, there's a time now to like how you have got in easy, understandable parlance, you have got Formula Ford, Formula 3, Formula 2 as the stepping stones to get across to Formula 1. So here in Formula E, we are already at Formula 1 levels as far as electromobility is concerned, and there is nothing down below. And I think that's a laudable thought with which that was the entry point to get thinkers like Dilbagh Gill getting on and trying to explore what they could do. So what he has done is he wants to do a championship using a very dazzlingly done car. I saw the car which was there at Hyderabad, a prototype was there. The basis of that car is the Gen 2 Formula E chassis, different aerodynamic bodywork, and it'll come with two battery packs and two different motor configurations. One would be slightly lesser in power, and one would be slightly higher in power. And they would, so you start with the slightly lesser in power, and guys get to grips with that. Then you graduate to another. So the Ace Championship, and then the Ace Challenger will be the one which will be the lesser powered cars.
The entry version.
The entry version, and then you'd go to the Ace Championship. So it's a very, very good feeder series to Formula E. I hope it takes on. They say that they should be ready for this next year.
Yeah. So they're saying that the first cars will be shown by the end of this year. What the car that was shown actually is based on a Gen 2 car, but that's not going to be the final car because they're going to be working on a new tub. They're also talking to technology partners, so for the battery, for the motor, so all of that is a work in progress. What Dilbagh wants to do is that make it very affordable. So the team, say you have two cars, but you can do two championships.
And
so
with four drivers.
With four drivers. So mainly it will be software. So the software will unleash maybe another 100 kilowatts. You just change the aero, so you change the nose and the rear wing, maybe put bigger tires. And also he's talking about having these LED display banners on the car. So like what McLaren has tried out on their Formula 1 car. So then you can change the sponsor logos. You can have the entire rear wing as a display board and change the logos. He's also talking about having like how in Tour de France, you have the leader wearing a yellow jersey. So maybe you have a yellow light to know who is actually leading the race.
Leading the championship.
Leading the championship.
Is he accelerating or is he regenerating?
Exactly.
So it's quite a lot of...
all different lighting and using technology that is there. Because, okay, you don't talk about lighting and racing, right? But you can use all of this and add a lot of masala into the
you have to spice up the sport. Okay, well, and this is today with all our kids and whatnot, this damn thing dominates everything across over there. So they come from the youth of today come from a very geeky setup, you know. So this is fuel to them, and we need more people to embrace our sport. Since you spoke about logos and all that, I must make one observation. Till the 8th season of Formula E, I loved the livery of the Mahindra cars. Phenomenal. They stood out well on television. Sadly, the new livery doesn't stand out well on television. They need to rethink, because last year's livery was terrific. You could make out that a Mahindra was scything through the field. Here, I cannot make out that thing. And you see the amount of people in Formula 1 who give so much thought to how they do up the physical get-up of the car to stand out well on television. You need to do that.
Yeah, and obviously red, it really gets our juices going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's on the Ace Championship, which is promoted by the same promoters of the Hyderabad Grand Prix. What Dilbagh wants to do is have championships in Asia, have it in Europe, have it in North America, and also do like a scholarship series. So the winner of the Challenger series goes into the main championship. They're still in conversation with the FIA to have this as a feeder series. So it's not like done and dusted. This is going to be a feeder series.
Sure.
But they will have the Ace Championship running alongside Formula E in a couple of street races, and the remaining places they will go to proper circuits because they don't have the wherewithal to set up the full infrastructure of doing a street race. A street race costs a hell of a lot of money. So they're thinking sensibly also, and hopefully that will take off, and next year we will have this Ace Championship.
Even if we see 2 or 3 races happen, it will spur the movement on and get many thinking. Okay, Formula E, we need to go there. Let's get through the Ace series, you know.
Yeah. So that's it on the Evo India podcast, focused on motorsport and the Formula E race. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments. Adil and myself, we'll get ourselves to actually reply to all your comments. We did have a very good time. There were
Absolutely.
some areas of improvement. We've talked about that. If you think there are some more areas that we should have highlighted, let us know in the comments. Maybe we'll do
But
a follow-up to
Shirish,
it.
before we end, if I had to give a rating for this race, I would give it a 9 out of 10. 9 stars out of 10, and I think the event deserved that.
Excellent. So 9 stars out of 10. We've had a great race, and Formula E is committed to coming back to India. This is not a one race.
I think
deal.
they've signed up for 5 years.
Exactly. So they will
Hyderabad
be
has signed
back.
up for 5 years, which is wonderful.
They will be back. It'll look better. It'll be better organized, and yeah, it's great for the sport in the country. This year we might even have MotoGP. MotoGP is there on the calendar.
It's on the calendar.
So that's something.
We're keeping
also
our fingers crossed.
That's also
It
something to
happens.
look forward to. After 10 years since Formula One left India, we're going to have 2 FIA championships.
I must
FIM,
come in
sorry.
here. I must come in here again. If Hyderabad is anything to go by, and I'm talking purely from a non-political angle, I want to see competition between the states to do motorsport more and more. Hyderabad is not, Telangana is not a BJP ruled state, but Uttar Pradesh is where Noida and BIC resides. Can we have great competition amongst you guys to get Formula One at the BIC back? I leave it with that thought.
Or maybe one of the new circuits that are coming up. So anyway, fingers crossed.
Fingers
that-
crossed.
In fact, we should do a podcast on the new circuits that are coming
Yes.
up. There are so many
So
out there. In
yes.
fact, if you have some ideas on what motorsport topics we should talk about, obviously we are going to do a Formula One season preview once all the cars are unveiled. But any more motorsport topics, again, drop it in the comments. And thank you guys for watching and listening. Adil, thank you for being
Wonderful.
on the podcast.
All the best, Shirish. We'll, go pedal to the metal again.
Thank you guys.